Some people plan for the future, like they're expecting nothing but blue skies and convenience stores that never close. Others, they know better. If you're thinking ahead, whether it's because of rising grocery costs, unpredictable supply chains, or just the peace of mind that comes with being prepared, then you need foods that don't just last a while. You need foods that outlast your mortgage. These aren't your average pantry staples. We're talking about items so resilient, so stubbornly shelf-stable, that they could probably survive the apocalypse and still be ready for breakfast. And here's the best part. Most of them are cheap, like really cheap. We've ranked them from solid to absolutely legendary. And trust me, number 1 is going to make you rethink everything you thought you knew about survival food. Let's dive in. Number 20, dried whole eggs, freeze-dried. Starting off strong with something most people have never even seen in a grocery store. Freeze-dried whole eggs. Eggs. In a can. Sounds weird, right? But stick with me here, because this is one of the most practical proteins you can stockpile, and it's criminally underrated. Fresh eggs go bad. Everyone knows that. Leave them on the counter too long, and you're one crack away from regret. But freeze-dried eggs? Those things laugh at expiration dates. When properly sealed and stored in a cool, dry place, they can last 10 to 15 years, sometimes even longer. They're lightweight, compact, and ready to reconstitute with just a little water whenever you need them. The magic is in the freeze-drying process. All the moisture gets pulled out, which is what bacteria need to grow and spoil food. Without moisture, there's nothing for microbes to latch onto. What you're left with is pure protein in powder form, waiting patiently in your pantry, like a patient friend who never complains. Now, let's be honest. They're not identical to farm-fresh eggs cracked straight from the shell. You're not going to impress anyone at brunch with them. But when fresh eggs aren't available and you need protein for scrambles, baking, or even just mixing into rice for extra nutrition, freeze-dried eggs step up without hesitation. They're also incredibly versatile. Pancakes, omelets, baked goods, casseroles, you name it, they'll work. And here's a bonus. They store easily. No refrigeration, no worrying about cracks or spoilage. Just a sealed container sitting quietly until the day you actually need it. For anyone serious about long-term food storage, dried whole eggs are a sleeper pick that deserves way more attention than they get. Number 19, pickling lime, calcium hydroxide, food grade. All right, I know what you're thinking. Pickling lime? That's not even food. And you're right, it's not something you eat by the spoonful. But it absolutely belongs on this list because of what it does for food preservation and the fact that it lasts forever without breaking down. Pickling lime is a mineral-based powder used in traditional food preparation techniques like pickling cucumbers and nixtamalization, which is the process of treating corn to make masa for tortillas. It's been used for centuries across cultures, and it's still just as effective today. When stored in a sealed container, pickling lime will outlast you, your kids, and probably your grandkids. It simply doesn't spoil. So why stockpile it? Because in a long-term survival situation, preserving fresh food becomes critical. Pickling lime helps keep vegetables crisp and shelf-stable when you're trying to stretch your harvest or make the most of limited resources. It also plays a role in processing dried corn into something more digestible and nutritious, which is huge if you're relying on grains as a primary food source. It's cheap, takes up almost no space, and can make a massive difference when you need to preserve food without refrigeration. You won't eat it directly, but when everything else is falling apart and you need to keep your produce edible for months, pickling lime becomes one of those quiet MVPs that proves its worth. Number 18, arrowroot powder. Next up is arrowroot powder, and if you've never heard of it, you're not alone. It's one of those ingredients that flies under the radar despite being incredibly useful and ridiculously stable. Arrowroot is a pure starch extracted from tropical plants, and when kept dry, it lasts indefinitely. No expiration date, no degradation, no drama. Its primary use is as a thickening agent for soups, sauces, gravies, and desserts. Think of it as a gluten-free, easier to digest alternative to cornstarch or flour. It works at lower temperatures, doesn't clump as easily, and creates a smooth, glossy finish in whatever you're cooking. When you're working with limited ingredients and trying to make a thin soup feel more substantial, Arrowroot powder can be a game changer, but it's not just for thickening. You can also use it in baking as a binder, or even as a base for homemade baby food if fresh options aren't available. It's gentle on the stomach, which makes it especially valuable during stressful times when digestion can get tricky. Arrowroot is lightweight, shelf-stable, and incredibly affordable. A small bag can last years and cover countless meals. It's not flashy, but when you're trying to make basic survival food more palatable and filling, this stuff quietly does the job without asking for credit. Number 17. Sorghum is one of those grains that the rest of the world relies on heavily, but in the US, it's been mostly overlooked. That's a mistake, because sorghum is tough, cheap, and built to last. When stored in airtight containers in a cool, dry place, whole sorghum grains can remain usable for 30 years or more. 3 decades. That's serious longevity for something so inexpensive. Nutritionally, sorghum holds its own. It's packed with fiber, protein, and essential minerals like iron and magnesium. It's also naturally gluten-free, which makes it a solid option for people with dietary restrictions. You can cook the whole grains into a chewy, nutty side dish similar to rice or barley, grind them into flour for baking, or even pop them like popcorn for a crunchy snack. What really makes sorghum stand out is its resilience. It's drought-resistant and grows in harsh conditions where other crops struggle, which is why it's a staple in parts of Africa and Asia. That same hardiness translates into incredible shelf life when stored properly. It doesn't demand much from you. Just keep it dry and sealed, and it'll be ready whenever you need it. Sorghum might not have the name recognition of wheat or rice, but when you're building a long-term food reserve on a budget, it's one of the smartest grains you can stockpile. Number 16. Millet is another underutilized grain that deserves way more respect than it gets. It's cheap, it's nutritious, and when stored correctly, it can last 10 to 20 years without issue. For something so affordable and versatile, that's an incredible return on investment. Millet has been a dietary staple in Asia and Africa for thousands of years, and it's starting to make a comeback in the West as people rediscover its benefits. It's high in protein, rich in B vitamins, and loaded with magnesium and phosphorus. It also cooks relatively quickly compared to other whole grains, which saves time and fuel, both of which can be precious in an emergency. You can prepare millet in a bunch of different ways. Cook it into a fluffy side dish similar to couscous. Turn it into a creamy porridge for breakfast, or use it as a base for grain bowls and salads. It has a mild, slightly nutty flavor that pairs well with almost anything, making it easy to incorporate into your meals without getting bored. Another big advantage is how forgiving millet is to store. It doesn't require any special treatment. Just keep it in an airtight container away from moisture and pests, and it'll sit patiently on your shelf for decades. When you're looking for a budget-friendly, long-lasting grain that actually tastes good, millet checks all the boxes. Number 15. Amaranth. Amaranth is an ancient grain that's been feeding people for thousands of years, and it's still going strong today. The Aztecs relied on it as a dietary staple, and it's easy to see why. Amaranth is incredibly nutritious, surprisingly resilient, and when stored properly, it can last 20 to 30 years without losing its quality. What sets amaranth apart is its impressive protein content. It's one of the few plant-based foods that contains all 9 essential amino acids, making it a complete protein. That's huge when you're trying to maintain muscle and energy on a limited diet. It's also rich in calcium, iron, and fiber, which makes it a serious nutritional powerhouse. Amaranth is also incredibly versatile. You can cook the seeds into a warm, porridge-like dish for breakfast, pop them like miniature popcorn for a crunchy snack, or grind them into flour for baking. The seeds are tiny, but packed with flavor and nutrition, and they mix well with other grains, vegetables, or spices. From a storage perspective, amaranth is a dream. It's compact, lightweight, and doesn't require refrigeration. Just seal it in an airtight container, keep it cool and dry, and it'll be ready to nourish you for decades. For anyone building a long-term food stockpile, amaranth is one of those smart, strategic picks that punches way above its weight class. Number 14. Dried whole corn. Field corn. Field corn isn't the sweet, juicy corn you grill at summer barbecues. It's tougher, drier, and built for storage, not snacking. But don't let that fool you. This stuff is incredibly valuable for long-term food reserves. When kept dry and sealed, whole kernel field corn can last 30 years or more, making it one of the longest-lasting grains you can stockpile. The beauty of field corn is its versatility. You can grind it into cornmeal for baking bread, tortillas, or cornbread. You can soak and cook the kernels into hominy or pozole. And if you treat it with pickling lime through nixtamalization, you unlock even more nutrition and make it easier to digest. That process is what traditional cultures have used for centuries to turn corn into masa for tortillas. Field corn is also incredibly affordable. It's one of the cheapest grains per pound, especially if you buy it in bulk. That makes it ideal for anyone looking to build a serious food reserve without breaking the bank. And because it's so stable, you don't have to worry about it spoiling or losing nutritional value over time. One thing to note, field corn is hard. You can't just boil it like rice and expect it to soften quickly. You'll need to grind it or process it properly before it's ready to eat. But if you have a grain mill or the knowledge to prepare it, field corn becomes an incredibly reliable, long-lasting staple that can anchor your food storage plan. Number 13, tapioca pearls, dry. Tapioca pearls are one of those foods that most people only think about when they're ordering bubble tea. But in the world of long-term food storage, they're quietly one of the most stable starches you can stockpile. Made from pure cassava starch, dried tapioca pearls can last indefinitely when stored in a cool, dry place. No expiration date, no guesswork, just pure, dependable carbohydrates waiting for when you need them. Tapioca is almost entirely starch, which is exactly why it stores so well. There's no oil, no protein, and very little moisture. Nothing for bacteria to latch onto and spoil. That simplicity is what makes it nearly indestructible on the shelf. Now, tapioca isn't going to win any nutrition awards. It's mostly just calories in carbohydrate form. But when food is scarce and you need energy fast, that's exactly what matters. You can cook tapioca into puddings, add it to soups to thicken them up, or mix it into stews for extra substance. It's bland on its own, but it absorbs flavors beautifully, which makes it easy to work into almost any meal. Tapioca is also lightweight and compact, so it doesn't take up much space in your pantry or emergency supplies. For the price, it's hard to beat. If you're looking for a cheap, shelf-stable starch that requires zero maintenance and lasts forever, tapioca pearls are a no-brainer. Number 12, textured vegetable protein, TVP, or textured vegetable protein, is one of those foods that looks weird, sounds industrial, and somehow ends up being incredibly practical. It's made from dehydrated soy protein, and when stored correctly, it can last 15 to 20 years without issue. It's cheap, lightweight, and packs a serious protein punch for something that costs almost nothing. The appeal of TVP is simple. It's a shelf-stable protein source that doesn't require refrigeration. In a survival situation where fresh meat isn't available, TVP can fill that gap. It comes in small chunks or granules that rehydrate quickly with just water or broth. And once it's reconstituted, you can use it in place of ground meat in tacos, chili, pasta sauce, or casseroles. Does it taste exactly like beef? No. But when you season it properly and mix it into a flavorful dish, it's surprisingly satisfying. The texture is similar to ground meat, and it soaks up whatever spices or sauces you throw at it. For vegans, vegetarians, or anyone looking to stretch their food budget, TVP is a reliable workhorse. It's also ridiculously easy to store. Just keep it in an airtight container away from moisture, and it'll sit patiently for years. And because it's so lightweight, you can pack a lot of protein into a small space, which makes it ideal for bug-out bags, camping supplies, or long-term pantry stockpiles. Number 11, farina, cream of wheat. Farina, better known as cream of wheat, is one of those simple, comforting breakfast foods that's been around forever. But beyond nostalgia, it's also a smart, long-term storage option. Thanks to its low oil content, farina can last 10 to 20 years when stored in an airtight container in a cool, dry place. That's a long time for something so inexpensive and easy to prepare. Farina is made from milled wheat, and it cooks up into a smooth, creamy porridge in just a few minutes. All you need is water or milk, a bit of heat, and you've got a warm, filling meal that delivers quick energy. It's especially useful in cold weather or stressful situations when you need something hot and comforting fast. Nutritionally, farina is mostly carbohydrates, but many brands are fortified with iron, B vitamins, and calcium, which adds a bit more nutritional value. You can dress it up with honey, dried fruit, cinnamon, or a spoonful of peanut butter to make it more interesting. It's also gentle on the stomach, which makes it a good option when digestion is off or when you're feeding kids or elderly family members. Farina is cheap, shelf-stable, and versatile. It's not flashy, but it's dependable. And in a long-term emergency, dependable is exactly what you need. Number 10. Split peas. Split peas are one of those underrated legumes that deserve way more credit. They're cheap, nutritious, and incredibly shelf-stable. When stored in airtight containers in a cool, dry environment, split peas can last 20 to 30 years without losing their quality. That's decades of reliable protein and fiber sitting quietly in your pantry. What makes split peas especially practical is how quickly they cook compared to other dried beans. Whole beans can take hours to soften, but split peas break down in about 30 to 45 minutes, with no soaking required. That saves time, fuel, and effort, all of which can be precious in an emergency. Split peas are also nutritional powerhouses. They're loaded with protein, fiber, iron, and B vitamins, making them a solid foundation for soups, stews, and hearty meals. Classic split pea soup is a survival staple for a reason. It's filling, comforting, and easy to make with minimal ingredients. Throw in some onion, garlic, or a ham bone if you have it, and you've got a meal that can stretch for days. Split peas are also ridiculously affordable. You can buy them in bulk for almost nothing, which makes them perfect for building a long-term food reserve on a budget. They're not glamorous, but they're dependable, nourishing, and built to last. Number 9. Dried chickpeas, garbanzo beans. Chickpeas, also known as garbanzo beans, are one of the most versatile legumes you can stockpile. They're affordable, nutritious, and when stored correctly, they can last 20 to 30 years or more. That kind of shelf life makes them a cornerstone of any serious long-term food storage plan. Nutritionally, chickpeas are outstanding. They're packed with protein, fiber, iron, and complex carbohydrates that provide steady, sustained energy. They're also incredibly versatile in the kitchen. You can roast them for a crunchy snack, mash them into hummus, toss them into salads, or cook them into hearty stews and curries. They work in Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, Indian, and even modern fusion dishes. One of the best things about chickpeas is how they transform with different seasonings. They're like a blank canvas that soaks up whatever flavors you throw at them. Add cumin and paprika for a smoky kick. Toss them with olive oil and garlic for a savory side. Or simmer them in tomato sauce for a filling vegetarian meal. Storage is simple. Just keep them in an airtight container away from moisture and pests, and they'll be ready whenever you need them. Dried chickpeas are compact, lightweight, and one of the best plant-based proteins you can store long-term. For the price and the versatility, they're hard to beat. Number 8. Molasses. Molasses is one of those ingredients that most people forget about until they need it, but it's an absolute powerhouse when it comes to long-term storage. Thanks to its high sugar concentration, molasses lasts indefinitely. It won't spoil, it won't ferment, and it won't lose its richness over time. Just keep it sealed and stored in a cool place, and it'll outlast just about everything else in your pantry. Molasses is more than just a sweetener. It's packed with nutrients like iron, calcium, magnesium, and potassium, which makes it one of the few sweeteners that actually contributes something nutritionally. A spoonful of blackstrap molasses, in particular, can provide a noticeable boost of minerals, especially iron, something that can be critical during long-term food shortages when fresh produce isn't available. You can use molasses in baking, add it to oatmeal or porridge for extra flavor and nutrition, mix it into marinades or sauces, or even dilute it with water for a quick energy drink. It has a deep, slightly bitter sweetness that adds complexity to recipes without being overwhelming. Molasses is also affordable and doesn't take up much space, which makes it easy to stockpile in bulk. When you're looking for a shelf-stable sweetener that actually offers some nutritional value and never expires, molasses is a smart, strategic choice. Number 7. White miso, unopened. Miso is one of those fermented foods that seems almost too good to be true when it comes to shelf life. Unopened white miso, when stored in a cool, dark place, can last for years, sometimes even decades. The combination of fermentation and high salt content creates an environment where spoilage bacteria simply can't survive. It's one of the most resilient, shelf-stable flavor boosters you can stockpile. Miso is made from fermented soybeans, salt, and sometimes rice or barley. The fermentation process not only preserves it, but also creates beneficial probiotics that support gut health. In a survival situation where fresh, nutrient-dense foods are limited, having access to probiotics can be a real advantage for digestion and overall well-being. Beyond the health benefits, miso is incredibly versatile. You can dissolve it in hot water for a quick, warming soup, stir it into sauces and marinades, or use it to add umami depth to stews and grain dishes. Just a spoonful can transform a bland pot of rice or beans into something rich and satisfying. Miso is compact, lightweight, and affordable. A single jar can last for months in regular use or years in storage. When you're looking for a way to add flavor, nutrition, and longevity to your food stockpile, miso is an underrated gem that delivers on all fronts. Number 6. Dried seaweed, nori, wakame. Dried seaweed might not be the first thing that comes to mind when you think about survival food, but it absolutely should be. Seaweed is one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet, and when stored correctly, it can last for years without losing its quality. Varieties like nori and wakame are incredibly shelf-stable, lightweight, and packed with minerals that are hard to find in other shelf-stable foods. Seaweed is loaded with iodine, which is essential for thyroid function and overall metabolism. It's also rich in calcium, magnesium, iron, and vitamins A, C, and K. In a long-term emergency where fresh vegetables are scarce, seaweed can help fill serious nutritional gaps that would otherwise be hard to address. Nori is the dried seaweed used to wrap sushi, and it's perfect for snacking, crumbling over rice, or adding to soups. Wakame is a softer variety that rehydrates quickly in hot water and works beautifully in miso soup or salads. Both are incredibly easy to store. Just keep them in a sealed container away from moisture, and they'll stay crisp and ready to use. Seaweed is also ridiculously affordable, especially if you buy it in bulk from Asian grocery stores. For the amount of nutrition it provides and how little space it takes up, dried seaweed is one of the smartest, most overlooked additions to any long-term food stockpile. Number 5. Whole nutmeg. Whole nutmeg might seem like a luxury item, but when it comes to long-term storage, it's a spice that lasts indefinitely. Ground spices lose their potency within months, but whole nutmeg can sit on your shelf for years, sometimes decades, without losing its flavor or aromatic oils. That longevity makes it a smart addition to any survival pantry. Nutmeg is more than just a baking spice. It has natural antimicrobial and digestive properties, and it's been used in traditional medicine for centuries to soothe upset stomachs and improve overall digestion. In a survival situation where stress and limited food variety can wreak havoc on your gut, having access to something like nutmeg can be genuinely helpful. You can grate fresh nutmeg into oatmeal, add it to baked goods, sprinkle it over soups or stews, or even mix it into hot drinks for warmth and comfort. A little goes a long way, and the flavor is far more vibrant and complex than anything you'd get from pre-ground nutmeg in a jar. Whole nutmeg is compact, inexpensive, and requires zero special storage. Just keep it dry and sealed. When you're building a long-term food reserve, having access to real flavor and spices can make the difference between meals that feel like punishment and meals that still feel like living. Nutmeg delivers both flavor and function, and it'll outlast almost everything else in your pantry. Number 4. Whole cloves. Whole cloves are another spice that lasts indefinitely when stored properly. These dried flower buds are incredibly shelf-stable, and while they do lose some potency over time, they remain flavorful and useful for decades. That makes them one of the most reliable spices you can stockpile for long-term use. Cloves are intensely aromatic and bring a warm, slightly sweet flavor to both sweet and savory dishes. You can stud them into hams, add them to mulled drinks, simmer them in stews, or use them in pickling and preserving. They're also known for their natural antimicrobial and pain-relieving properties. Chewing on a clove has been a traditional remedy for toothaches for centuries. Beyond flavor, cloves can also be used in natural cleaning solutions and homemade insect repellents, which adds another layer of practicality to having them on hand. When resources are limited and you're trying to make the most of what you have, multi-purpose items like cloves become incredibly valuable. Whole cloves are affordable, compact, and require no special care. Just keep them in a sealed jar away from light and moisture, and they'll be ready whenever you need them. When you're looking to add depth and warmth to your meals, or just keep some natural remedies on hand, whole cloves are a small investment with a massive return. Number 3. Ghee. Clarified butter. Ghee is clarified butter that's been simmered to remove all the milk solids and water, leaving behind pure, golden fat that's incredibly stable. Unlike regular butter, which spoils quickly, ghee can last for months at room temperature and even longer when refrigerated. But here's the real magic. When stored in an airtight container in a cool, dark place, ghee can remain usable for years without going rancid. The reason ghee lasts so long is simple. It's almost entirely fat, with virtually no moisture or milk proteins left to spoil. That low moisture content is what makes it so resilient. And because it has a high smoke point, ghee is perfect for frying, sautéing, and high heat cooking without breaking down or producing harmful compounds. Ghee is also incredibly rich and flavorful. It adds a buttery, nutty taste to everything it touches, which can turn plain rice, bland vegetables, or basic grains into something genuinely satisfying. In a survival situation where meals can feel repetitive and boring, having ghee on hand makes a huge difference in both flavor and morale. Nutritionally, ghee provides fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K, which are essential for overall health. Fat is also calorie-dense, which means it provides sustained energy when food is limited. When you're living on grains, beans, and dried vegetables, adding ghee can make those meals far more nourishing and filling. Ghee is affordable, especially if you make it yourself from butter. It's compact, shelf-stable, and one of the best fats you can stockpile for long-term storage. When you want to add richness, flavor, and nutritional value to your food reserve, ghee is an absolute game changer. Number 2. Pemmican. Pemmican is the original survival superfood, and it's been keeping people alive for centuries, long before protein bars, energy gels, or freeze-dried meals were even a concept. Indigenous peoples across North America were relying on pemmican to survive harsh winters, long journeys, and times when fresh food simply wasn't available. Pemmican is made from dried meat, rendered fat, and sometimes dried berries. The meat is pounded into a powder, mixed with fat, and packed into a dense, portable form that delivers protein and carbohydrates all in one compact package. It's calorie-dense, nutrient-rich, and designed to provide sustained energy over long periods without refrigeration. What makes pemmican truly legendary is its shelf life. When stored correctly, pemmican can last for decades. Some sources even claim it can remain edible for 50 years or more. That kind of longevity is almost unheard of for something so nutritionally complete. Explorers, trappers, and warriors depended on pemmican during grueling expeditions when resupplying wasn't an option, and it never let them down. Pemmican requires no cooking, no preparation, and no special equipment. You can eat it straight as a portable energy source, crumble it into soups and stews, or mix it with other foods to stretch your supplies. It's not fancy, it's not pretty, and it doesn't come in a shiny wrapper, but it's brutally effective at keeping you alive. Making pemmican at home is also surprisingly affordable if you have access to lean meat and fat. You can customize it with different meats, add spices, or include dried berries for extra flavor and nutrition. Whether you're building a bug-out bag, planning for long-term storage, or just want to try a piece of survival history, pemmican is a proven, time-tested option that still works today. Number 1. Hardtack. And here we are. Number 1. The undisputed champion of survival foods. Not the tastiest, not the most exciting, but absolutely the most indestructible. Hardtack. If bread had a battle-hardened, no-nonsense ancestor who fought in wars, survived shipwrecks, and outlasted entire civilizations, this would be it. Hardtack is the legendary survival biscuit that's kept sailors, soldiers, and explorers alive for centuries. And the reason it's still talked about today is simple. It refuses to die. Hardtack is made from nothing more than flour, water, and sometimes a pinch of salt. That's it. No yeast, no sugar, no oil, no preservatives. Just 3 basic ingredients mixed together, rolled out, and baked until they're rock hard. And when we say rock hard, we mean it. Hardtack has the texture of a flour-based brick. You don't bite into it. You gnaw on it. You soak it. You break it with a hammer. But you don't just eat it like normal bread. The beauty of hardtack is its absurd shelf life. When stored correctly in a cool, dry place, hardtack can last for decades. Some pieces recovered from Civil War-era supplies were still technically edible over 150 years later. That's not marketing hype. That's historical fact. Hardtack doesn't spoil because there's nothing in it to spoil. No moisture, no fats, no oils. Just dry, compact carbohydrates that sit there waiting patiently until you need them. Now, let's be clear. This isn't comfort food. It's not soft or flavorful. Eating hardtack is more like chewing on a salted roof tile. But when supplies are gone, when everything else is spoiled, and when you're facing real hunger, hardtack earns its reputation. It's the survival world's equivalent of a cockroach, persistent, and nearly impossible to destroy. Historically, hardtack was a staple on long sea voyages because it could survive months of humidity and rough handling. Soldiers carried it into battle because it wouldn't rot in their packs. Pioneers brought it across the frontier because it was lightweight, portable, and could outlast the journey. When everything else failed, hardtack was still there, still edible, and still capable of keeping you alive when it counted most. You can eat it plain if you're desperate, but most people soak it in coffee or stew to soften it up before eating. Some recipes even call for frying it in fat to make it more palatable. It's not going to win any culinary awards, but it gets the job done. And here's the best part. You can make hardtack at home for almost nothing. Flour and water are dirt cheap, and the process is dead simple. Mix, roll, and you've got survival bread that'll outlast most of your other preps. For the cost and the longevity, hardtack is unbeatable. So there you have it. 20 cheap foods that don't just last for decades. They practically last forever. Some are nutritious, some are flavorful, some are basically edible history lessons. But every single one earned its place on this list. When the world goes sideways and the grocery store shelves are empty, these foods will still be there, ready to keep you fed, fueled, and functional. No fridge, no electricity, no problem. You're still eating. Now go stock up and do it like a legend.